Hello and welcome to my channel. I did just finish filming last week's vlog. This is week 2 of Spookopoly, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, first of all, go watch last week's vlog. Second of all, it is a month-long readathon where basically you are moving around a Monopoly board and each prompt or each space is associated with a different prompt. It is hosted by Becca from Becca and the Books and inspired by her old TBR game that she doesn't really play anymore. And this might be the last round. So we're trying to go all out for it. I did say last week that I was not going to start off this vlog with a roll, and I think that is still the case, even though I probably should. I don't know, what do you think? So I do technically have an audio and a physical read going on. Let's try it and see what I get. And then worst case scenario, we'll just add it on to the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A TBR vet. So I consider a TBR vet a book that has been on my shelf for at least a year. That doesn't really help me. What I was trying to do was get one of the Junji Ito books that I have to read on here, but I don't think that's very helpful. Hold on, let me see what I got. Okay, I have options. I didn't really want to pick like a full-on book. I was hoping the board would be nice to me. Apparently that didn't work out so well. I was hoping like the board would give me something like small book. Why couldn't I have gotten a 6? Oh, I could also go for, I think it's downstairs. I'm gonna go for a book that is on my currently reading. I did start it in September. A book that I can, first of all, count towards my bingo board. And a book that I've definitely owned way longer than a year. It is a nonfiction book called Gothic Fantasy. And this one is split into parts so that I can read it alongside others. But it is called Gothic Fantasy. It is a nonfiction book about the films of Tim Burton. Okay, I think that's a great idea because I can read it along with the books I've already got going on and it won't mess anything up. I was really hoping to get that on my TBR this month. Okay, I mean, hey. If it works, it works. I'm probably going to jinx it when I say this, but this means I have officially made it fully around the board without any repeating prompts. I'm really kind of trying to get like around the board and hit as many as I can without doubling up or like without repeating prompts. Trying to see how many across the board I can get. Okay. Yeah. So now I've got 4 books I'm juggling, and you know, because of course I'm never nice to myself. So yeah, I'll check in with you later. I am really hoping to finish one of these million different projects I've got going on. This week has been something. I feel like I'm just singing the same old song and dance. But I'm updating you now because I did manage to finish Sign Here. I ended up swapping over to the audiobook because I ran out of hours on my Spotify. So I have about an hour left of looking for love in all the haunted places. And of course, I ran out of listening time. So I ended up just swapping so that I have at least a little bit of an audio book going on. But I did finish Sign Here. I think I said, like, family drama isn't usually my favorite. Like, I love the idea of it, but usually it's just something that I'm not, like, super interested in reading. So with this one, like, I was and was not interested in continuing on with it. Like, I was, because we were getting some interesting plot twists and some interesting story developments. Like, I was intrigued by it, but I wasn't super, like, when I put it down, I didn't really want to pick it up. Like, it wasn't at the forefront of my mind. And if it's not at the forefront of my mind while I'm reading it, then I don't know. It's just not something I particularly care about. So it is, like, really, really, really frustrating when, you know, something like that happens. And, like, it's not a bad book. It's just, like, there were definitely certain sections that I was more interested in than others, that I cared about more than others. And because of that, like, I wasn't particularly invested in the story. Not to mention, there really isn't a single likable character in here. Which, like, obviously, you know, except for maybe, I mean, even the kids, like, you try to like Lily and Silas's children, Mickey and Sean, and, like, they're kind of likable, but also, like, I feel like we didn't get a lot of, like, Sean, unfortunately. We also didn't, so, like, we didn't really, like, get to know him very well. Mickey, I think I would have liked her more if she wasn't so hung up on this new best friend that she brings to the camp with them. Did I even explain, like, more of the plot than just it's about a demon trying to get these family, like, this whole family's souls? Probably not. So none of this is probably making sense to you. Either way, I gave this a 3-star, which isn't a bad rating. It's just, like I said, there were so many compelling moments, but then there were just as many moments where I just didn't particularly care about what was going on. I do still have 2 books that I have to make my way through. I've got, like, 60 pages left in Looking for Love in All the Haunted Places, so I really should finish that. I don't know if it's going to be today, because apparently I gotta go be social with my friends tonight after I finish up some chores. And then I also did get a decent chunk into Gothic fantasy. This is, I'm 107 pages in, so we've already talked about his films, Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, and now I'm on Batman Returns. So this is really interesting. Like, I'm learning a lot. Most of these films I have not watched. Like, obviously I have watched Beetlejuice, and I did watch Edward Scissorhands a long time ago, but I remember none of it. But it's still really interesting to, like, I'm not a person that, for the most part, super cares about spoilers, depending on, like, what it is. It's not something that super bothers me, unless it's, like, a huge twist. Like, if it's just, like, with this book, it's just really talking about the certain movie scenes. So it's nothing, like, super, that I'm super worried about having spoilers too. But I do think this probably would be better if you had already watched all the movies. Either way, like, it's still really interesting to me, and I looked into seeing if he had done this, or the author had done this for any other directors, and it only looks like he's written one other book like this, which does stink, because I actually really like the format of this book. Either way, I don't have an audiobook now, and I could do another roll to try to get me an audiobook, but I really should, I don't know, should I? if I don't do a roll now, I don't know if I'm going to get to any other point in this vlog. I think it would be, I really would like to get an audiobook, and I think I have like another week before I get any time back on my Spotify hours. No, I last landed on TBR Vet. Let's do, of course, it's a double. 4. All right, we'll do from TBR Vet. 1, 2, 3, 4. Present, which is a book that you want to read right now. It's one that I have already landed on. Okay, and then, are you kidding me? Another double. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Feed scroll, which is basically if you go on any social media and you scroll until you find a book that you want to read or a book that you own. This is usually really hard for me because I feel like a lot of, like, I don't own a lot of books that are like super popular that I want to read right now. All right, and then we'll do another roll because you got a 2 double. Are you 3 doubles? 2. A chance to pick. I don't have the cards made yet, but I'll do that in a minute. Thank you. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is a mood read, so that could be helpful. All right, let me go update my notebook, figure out what my options are here, and then we'll come back. Okay, after all that and trying to get like an actual audiobook on my TBR, that's the whole reason we rolled, is to get an audiobook on my TBR. I did manage to get one, but only one. So, for the present space, present means to read a book that you want to read right now, and I have not started any of my manga reads for this month, which, if you don't know, I'm trying to read as many Junji Ito books as I can. It's already the 11th, and I have not done that. So, for that one, I probably should have gotten the books before starting this, shouldn't I? So I went with a little bit of a smaller Junji Ito, and that is Black Paradox, which I have out from my library right now. This one is one that I started reading in the past, and I don't think I ever finished it, but it's really interesting. For Feed Scroll, all I did, like, I don't know why, but I don't really follow a lot of, like, bookish creators on anything other than YouTube, and some on TikTok, but not very many, which is weird because I really should. But all I did was type in Bookstagram on Instagram, and there was a lot of fall posts, and I happened to see a book that I have on my Kindle that I got through NetGalley called Deja Brew. Don't really know what this is about, but it definitely has those cozy fall vibes that I love, and I'm really excited. I know it's a romance, but that's great because now I can read it and actually fit it into spooky season and actually review something on NetGalley for once. For chance, instead of making cards and wasting paper, I just did a quick spinner wheel. Basically, chance means you have some books that you want to read at the moment, some books that you don't really want to read at the moment, and you spin the wheel, and whatever you land on, or you pick a card, and you know, that's what you get. I was thankful to get a book that I actually want to read right now, and that is Remina, I think, by Junji Ito. So I'll be getting 2 books done, and this is another one that I have out from the library. This one I don't know what it's about. I think it's more of like an unknown planet emerges from inside a wormhole. So that's 2 mangas that I get to fit on this. So this reading should go by pretty quickly. And then for mood read, this is where I managed to get in that audio. I found out my library does have the audio for Cemetery Boys, which is a book that I love to reread every October when I can. And I was thankful enough to have been able to put it on my October TBR this month. So we'll be reading that, and that's what I'll be jumping into probably as soon as I finish this vlog update, because I still have things that I need to do. So I went from 7 rolls to 11 in the span of 10 minutes. Thankfully, most of these are relatively short and I can get through pretty quickly. As far as if I'm going to be rolling again before the end of this vlog, we'll see. Like I said, I have to go, or I don't have to go, but I'm going to hang out with some of my friends tonight with Benson. So I don't imagine very much reading is going to get done for the rest of the night. But I also don't imagine we're going to be out super late anyway. And I have the entire weekend, minus tomorrow morning, off. So I should be able to get a good chunk of reading. I hope. I keep saying that, but like lately, like I'm not in a reading slump. Like I do really, really want to read. It's just the books that I'm picking up aren't really calling to me. Like Sign Here, not so much. Looking for Love in All the Haunted Places, not so much. So I'm hoping these few rolls will be helpful. Okay, few updates. First of all, let's start with this one. I did finish Black Paradox. This is probably my least favorite Junji Ito. I tend to not like his linear stories as much as I do the short story collections, and I don't really know why, because normally it's the opposite when it comes to novels. This one follows 4 people who are set on ending their lives. They decide to do it together to make it less intimidating, but then something happens that leads them to not ending their lives, and I don't know, the synopsis is very vague, so I don't really know what to tell you. But I don't feel like I was even really scared. There were some creepy and gross moments in this, but I don't feel like I was particularly terrified of this one. It does deal with some dark topics. It does deal with some gross situations, and there are a little bit of scary situations. I just don't feel like this was particularly scary for me. On the other hand, this is probably my most surprising, because this was one of the ones that I was least excited to read by him. I did read Remina. I'm going to say it like Remina, because Remina doesn't sound like it's named after our female lead character. So I think Remina sounds more like a name. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. That is totally fine, totally valid. But this one, first of all, I talked about it in my Discord server because I'm doing a little read-along / book club with the people in my Discord server, kind of. No one's really talked yet, but whatever. But this one follows, we open with a doctor who discovers this new planet and decides to name it after his daughter. Unfortunately, because he decided to name it after his daughter, as it starts to approach the Earth and it's like it's starting to take out other planets. People think that she has something to do with it, and it ensues the story of her trying to save herself while people are trying to kill her for something that is not her fault. Well, this giant planet is coming towards Earth. First of all, this whole idea is terrifying. This is probably the second, or probably even tied for first, most scary book of his, tied with Geo. Because these both have to do with some of the scariest things that I can think of. Geo involves fish that have legs and sharks that have legs. And this one involves space, which is a product of the unknown that scares many people, myself included. Not only that, but this like shows the side of humanity and what humanity will be willing to do when they are faced with the unknown, and it is just chaotic and gruesome and awful. And so this really dives into like a doomsday situation where people are going crazy and trying to hurt her simply because she shares a name with a planet. It is just entirely a out of pocket situation. And even the ending of this, where it still delves into, like, normally I don't like open-ended endings where you really don't know what's going to happen, but with this one I feel like it was kind of necessary, because it is still, you're just delving further into the unknown and you don't know what's going to happen, and that is so beyond terrifying. And again, I just said I typically don't like his linear stories. I prefer his short story collections, but I think this one is beyond my favorite of his linear stories, and possibly up there as one of my favorite Junji Ito's of all time now. And I borrowed this from the library, so I'm starting to think maybe I should get a physical copy to add to my collection. Those are the two that I finished. I do also have a bit of kind of bad news, because I did really want to read it this month, but I am very, very soft DNFing, and I mean soft DNFing Deja Brew. So this is one that I got from NetGalley, which, if you don't know what NetGalley is, it basically offers reviewers a chance to get advanced copies of books before they come out. So you can download them onto your Kindle or onto your pretty much any ebook device, and you can read them early, typically with the caveat that you'll review them. First of all, this book is already out, so I definitely slacked a little bit in that aspect. I'm just really bad at reading ebooks anyway. Secondly, if you read a lot of romance, or even if you don't read a lot of romance, most romances are now in series, whether or not they're connected. Usually they're not connected, but some romances, if they're like in companion series, you don't need to read the books, like the previous books, to get into the series. So, for example, the Brown Sisters series. None of these books you need to read the others in order to understand. You could start at Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and the only thing that you would be spoiled by is whether or not your main characters get together, but obviously they do, because they're romance books. Very rarely are romance books, like in romance books, do the couples not get together. But you don't need to read any of these in order to understand any of the relationships, because each romance is established in its own book. However, with the Hot and Hammered series, while you don't need to read the first book to understand the second book, you kind of do need to read the second book in order to understand the third book, because the character, or the male main character in the third book, is introduced in the second book, and you kind of need to read this one in order to understand the start of that dynamic, if that makes sense. I have been reading Deja Brew, and I haven't gotten very far in, but I already feel like there are things that I'm missing, established relationships that I am missing. It keeps mentioning a character named Ursula, which I found out is the main character from the second book. And I have no idea of the relationship there. I have no idea. She already mentioned her love interest by name, and it seems like they already have an existing relationship that I will not understand unless I read the others. So I feel like I need to read books 1 and 2 before I continue on with that. So this was my pick for feed scroll. So I ended up doing that again, scrolled through a couple. I'll be very honest, there were a couple that I owned, like a couple books that I owned that I saw, but I already have later in the year reading plans for. Like, I want to read them at a specific time. So I kept scrolling and eventually found a book that I think was perfect for spooky time that I bought on vacation when we were in Florida. So the book that I will be replacing Deja Brew with is Butcher and Blackbird, which I have described to Benson many times as Dexter, but make it sexy. We follow 2 serial killers in this, and both of them one day both of them decide to go after the same mark, and from there it turns into like a competition. This is marketed as like a dark rom-com, which typically I like lighter contemporary romances. I have yet to delve into the dark romance genre. It doesn't necessarily seem like my vibe, though I'm not opposed to trying it in the future. This is going to be the darkest romance that I have ever read. I have heard there are some scenes in this that are absolutely disgusting. So this will be like dipping my toes into the dark romance genre, and we'll see how this goes. I'm nervous. Almost everybody has phenomenal reviews of this book. I'm nervous, I'm excited. I also know that this has one of my least favorite tropes, which is a lot of time skips. So I'm nervous about that. I mean, I don't know if time skips are like necessarily a trope, but oh, and there's a whole list of trigger warnings, including accidental cannibalism. Okay. I am really, really, really excited about this book, but I'm also very, very nervous. But I guess there is no better time to try to read it like the present. Oh, but it also has a playlist. Okay, so this is the one that we'll be reading. Like I said, nervous, excited. We'll see how it goes. Wish me luck. I happen, however, like, I'm not going to read that right now because I have also been reading Gothic fantasy for a good majority of the day. I say for a good majority of the day, but really for like the last hour or two. I've got about 100 pages left, so I really would like to finish that so that I can get one book from last week off the TBR. I don't know, I'm just in such a reading mood, but I'm also in the mood to do so many other things that it's like I feel like the ADHD is ADHDing. Like I want to play a game, but I want to read, but I want to film and to edit and to do like all these things. I don't know, it's been like a day, but I want to watch TV, but I want to watch new shows, and it's just been, I don't know, I feel like that's been my vibe all month. Like, I really want to read, but I really want to do everything else. Okay, I could talk to you for another like 30 minutes, so I'm gonna say bye, and I'll check in with you later, and then I might end this vlog tomorrow depending on what I finish. It's been a few days. And I've actually been meaning to end this vlog for quite a while now. I just haven't had the time or really the effort to do so. But in my last B-roll update, hold on, you will have seen that I went a little bit, I went and did a little bit of book shopping. So first of all, I got this nonfiction book about cults called Cult Following, which, first of all, this cover is 100% absolutely what drew me in. It's very shiny. But also, true crime is something that I've always had an interest in. Especially, like, the cult mind mentality. So I'm really interested to see what direction this goes in. I also got, which I've been trying to read as many of these as I can. Not doing so great so far, but I've been trying to read as many Junji Ito books as I can. And there were a couple that I really wanted to own physically. So I ended up getting Soichi, Smashed, and Uzumaki. This one more in preparation for the show, which I'm hearing a lot of disappointing things about after the first episode. So I don't know how we're going to feel about that, but I did get those in preparation of reading more. We'll see if my luck changes with actually being able to fit these in to the Spookopoly board. But like I said, that is where I'm going to be ending it, and we will start next week, probably with a new role, even though I don't really need it. But thank you so much for watching. I know this is kind of a little bit of a short one, but I appreciate you hanging out with me for a little while, and I will see you next week.